Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And to the surprise of no one except maybe Disney, Avatar 2 underperformed at the box office this weekend.
And of course, like we always say they do, the media is now blaming it on COVID.
They're blaming it on COVID, yes. Of course they are. We said this was going to happen. It couldn't possibly be that maybe China just wasn't interested in this movie.
I mean, yeah, COVID's a thing, but when you consider what they're down by, it really wasn't a lot internationally, or, it was down, but you can't attribute all of that to COVID.
Yes, but we're going to be blaming COVID for everything, even 5 or 10 years from now, especially, with Hollywood. And we've already seen examples of why it's bunk. I mean, Spider-Man, Top Gun, people will go see movies they want to go see. And Avatar's opening, its soft opening, is being blamed for Disney stock dropping.
Dow in general didn't do great today, but one site I saw said that Disney was the biggest loser of the day.
Yeah, I mean, look at this. Disney's down to 85.78. They said that Disney shares hit a 52-week low after James Cameron's Avatar: The Way of Water fell short of box office expectations. The company is in the midst of restructuring its streaming business after Bob Iger returned. But yeah, they're basically like...
I think some of the stuff coming out, too, about the drama behind the scenes is probably feeding into it as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a lot of things. I think it's just like Disney doesn't have a plan. They don't see a plan at this point. The shakeup with the CEOs. But they said analysts pegged the long-awaited Avatar sequel as a box office winner for Disney and are viewing the holiday season as a make-or-break period for the film. So, yeah, there's a lot riding on this one. That's why everybody's trying so hard to defend it.
I mean, I don't think it's fair to put it all on the holiday weekend, but, that's what they're doing.
Yep. In this one, they were betting heavily on China, and China disappointed them. So we're gonna talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. Almost 283,000 subs. Hit the subscribe button.
Well, it's funny. We have hit 283, and then it suddenly drops down.
Then they took them away, and then they put some back, and then they took them away. Yeah, so I think YouTube is doing one of their audits or something right now. I don't know what's going on.
I guess maybe we should be more confirmation biasy, and maybe we gotten subscribers instead of just focusing on the truth.
Yes, if we told everybody what they wanted to hear, we got more political, we probably would grow a lot faster.
But we're not going to do that because that's just not who we are.
That's never who we've been. So we're gonna talk about this. You actually did a story on piratesandprincesses.net
I did.
about it, and we can kind of maybe give the bird's eye view of what happened. So why don't we talk about this?
Everybody else is giving it a positive, like, it came in 135 million domestically, but they're not putting it in context.
It was supposed to be 150 to 175 million domestic,
and overall it's about 100 million to about 90 million to 115 million under expectations all the way around.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about it actually as it is, and not just as the media is trying to spin it. So if you go look at the numbers, they were estimating that the film was going to do 175 domestically. I've read 150 to 175. And then they were looking at about 200 million from China, and then an additional 150 million from the other markets outside the U.S.
Yeah.
So they were thinking it was going to be about 525 to 550 million was roughly in that range where they thought it was going to end up.
Right.
But it ended up at 435 million.
Which, any other movie, that would be amazing.
And that's not terrible.
It's not terrible, but it still comes in behind Marvel movies. It's not what they were hoping for. They were hoping this was going to be the second coming, and they're already trying to give excuses we'll get to that later, but theater owners are optimistic. They think people are just waiting. They're just waiting.
They're just waiting for word of mouth because
waiting for streaming.
Yeah, probably because as word of mouth is coming out, what I'm hearing is, it's really pretty. It's way too long, and a lot of things it's very bloated. A lot of things could be cut out. They just did it to be like. One of our writers did a review on it, and he was talking about how he felt like a lot of it was just them rehashing the first movie. We had to learn about the new Na'vi's culture. And they're the water people. So the whole movie is just a bunch of stuff they could have put in a book or companion, something that you didn't need to know for the movie.
Yeah, I think the thing about the first movie, too, was they were very heavy on the exposition. Like, here's how everything in our world works. And it's all...
It says that's what it is again. It's like world building 2.0. And it's the first one you can argue was all about setting it up. Well, it sounds like they're going to do it with every movie. So it's really... That's kind of boring people. I think people, I think there's a lot of number of things that are going on. I think that people don't want to sit through a 3.5 hour, 3 hour, 15 minute, or whatever it is movie.
Yeah.
People just didn't like the first one.
Yeah.
They have no interest in this movie. It could be like you said, they're waiting for streaming because the cost of the tickets to this movie were raised a lot of places.
Yeah, and look, we're not saying it's a bad movie. We're not saying it's going to be a box office bomb.
Not at all.
But this is one that, I really couldn't weigh in on the numbers because I did not know what to expect. But my gut feeling is that Avatar does not have a lot of excitement current year.
They waited too long.
They waited too long. Now people could say, well, they waited 16 years for Star Wars and however many years for Tron.
Well, look how that worked out.
Tron Legacy didn't work out very well. Even though I liked it quite a bit, it didn't work out very well.
I have a little admission. I didn't care for it because it was Tron without Tron. I thought that was stupid.
It was. I think they were building up to Tron being in the third one, which never happened. But
right, which makes me upset. I would have watched if Tron were in it. Call me crazy.
Yeah, I think
I didn't really care for it that much. Sorry.
Bruce Boxleitner was waiting for a phone call he never got. He was in it a little bit, but he was supposed to be much bigger role.
There was supposed to be a lot of things that didn't happen. But we're looking at this, and of course, immediately Forbes, Hollywood Reporter, everybody's blaming it on COVID because China has some COVID things, and it was funny because Forbes goes beyond it to fear mongering. All of which is to say it's clear Avatar: The Way of Water fell short of predictions, but it's pointless to ignore the glaring fact most of the shortfalls from the 500+ million estimates is due to China's box office failing to live up to expectations because their reopening has led to a dangerous tide of COVID infections that threaten to overload healthcare facilities and endanger the rest of the world with an even worsening surge through winter, including potential for even more variants due to the sheer scale and spread across the Middle Kingdom.
So, if Avatar did well, this wouldn't happen?
No, but the thing is, they keep saying it missed because of China. It missed because it missed by 35 to 55 million domestically.
Yeah.
And it missed 50 million or whatever overseas.
So later in the article, the writer admits that they're biased. In quotes, I'm personally particularly leery of COVID and inclined to point to it as a regular factor in box office outcomes, but even I underestimated how bad the surge would be at this point. No, there was no surge because people didn't feel the need to go see this movie at the box office. People would have come out for it if they really were that excited. And
then beyond COVID, North America. It's not because of COVID. It's because the abnormally high early flu spread and RSV epidemic. Bullshit.
Last year, COVID and illness running rampant, and everybody was right up next to each other going to see Spider-Man. They didn't want to see the movie. Why is it so hard to admit that maybe for various reasons that have nothing to do with illness, people just aren't into it?
But I love how it went beyond COVID this time to COVID and flu and RSV
and diarrhea.
Diarrhea and erectile dysfunction and vaginal dryness.
Well, look, hey, James Cameron said that testosterone was toxic, so maybe everybody's got ED and they couldn't get up for Avatar.
I don't know. I just laughed so hard when I saw this article from Forbes because I was like, oh my gosh, we were joking that they were going to make it about COVID, but they not only made it about COVID, they made it about how we ought to be afraid because COVID's taking over the world. I was like, oh my
God, this is going to be the official narrative then.
It is, because then the Hollywood Reporter followed right after it.
Next earnings call after they go through the whole spiel about, hey, new Bob, who's old Bob again, and hey, I'm so glad to be back. Hey, Bob 1.0, why did Avatar underperform? Well, China had the flu and the diarrhea and the erectile dysfunction, and they didn't want to go see our half-naked cat people. That's the official story.
I don't know. Well, go back to my article with numbers. I'm going to look at something here. We know that it ended up making about $435 million, which is only about 95 to 115, depending on which estimate you go with.
Only.
Million below what they expected, right?
Yes.
But in the U.S., it made 135 million. So it's 40 million below in the U.S., okay?
Yes.
And then overseas, they had done about 300 million, but they were expecting 350 million. So it really didn't drop much more there than it did, just a little bit more there than it did over here. And again, that was across all markets, not just China.
Yes.
But they were expecting 200 million in China. I think they did 51 million. So it made up in other areas. It's just you guys are salty because it didn't do well in China.
That's exactly what it is. And Disney keeps trying to make their movies happen in China. And honestly, at this point, I'm going to say China is rejecting Disney. Even when they get their movies to play over there, they're rejecting Disney.
Yeah, that's not to say that there aren't a lot of issues over there with COVID and the theaters are shut down. I'm sure, yes, that is partly true. But the whole idea that it just failed because of COVID, and when you try to bring up, what about North America? Oh, it's because of the flu. I'm like, are you serious right now?
Yes, they are, because they can't come up with another reason why people don't want to go see this movie. Again, the word on the street, now I've heard varying numbers, but the word on the street is that $2 billion is what they're looking at, and I don't think they're going to come anywhere close to it. I think they would be lucky at this point to pass Top Gun, and I don't know if that's going to happen. I think
it might eventually, but not by the end of the year.
No, definitely.
When they have like their 5th re-release, that's how they got the record the first time.
Yeah, so they're gonna have an even wetter, wilder version of.
I don't think they wants to see it uncut. They said there was a 9-hour version of the film, and they cut it down to 3. That's what their rumor was. Yes. No,
what was that, like 2, 3, and 4 together, and they just kind of.
I don't know.
Do they have to explain everything?
And of course, James Cameron so up James Cameron's own ass that he's not gonna like it, and he's gonna find reasons. It's because of toxic people, male toxicity, or something stupid.
Well, theater executives are not concerned. Moviegoers are waiting.
I think it'll do better. I just think it's going to be interesting though, because the second weekend is over Christmas, and I don't know how that's going to do when it's the holiday.
Yeah, I mean, this is a tough. I don't know where this thing is going to end up, and I'm not going to pretend to know where it's going to end up.
I'm not going to say it's not going to do better, because I think it's still going to bring money.
I think it's still going to make money. I just don't know if it's going to make as much money as they thought. I mean, this is definitely $435 million is nothing to sneeze at.
No,
right?
My takeaway is the fact that they're so desperate for excuses as to why it didn't hit box office expectations, which, may I point out, a lot of films did not hit box office expectations recently. That they're so desperate to make excuses that they're just making any excuse they can instead of just letting it ride and seeing where it goes.
Yeah, and a lot of times I think they prematurely, kind of call the time of death on these films too. Now, Christmas movies do have the benefit of not having a lot of competition going into January, February, March. There usually isn't much competition.
Well, this was without competition, pretty much.
Yeah, well, it's gonna finish off Wakanda Forever, I think, at this point, because if it's people that want to go see the latest Marvel thing already went to go see it, and now this one's probably gonna kind of finish that off. So Disney just cannibalizes itself, but all the money goes to the same company anyway.
Well, it sounds like a lot of the stuff went to IMAX too, because $48.8 million of global was IMAX tickets.
I mean,
and they charged a pretty penny for those IMAX tickets.
Yes.
So don't worry, they don't get as well. That's something else you have to consider. They're like, well, you have to remember that's such a long movie, they didn't get as many showtimes, right? But if you're going about how much money it made, a lot of the tickets were way more expensive. And ahead of the movie, we pointed out, they're jacking the tickets up for this film before the movie even came out to try to drive up the numbers. So consider all that as well.
Now they're trying to say this one's not front loaded. They said usually superhero movies the first weekend or two, that's when most people go.
Well, that's what I'm waiting to see.
But I just don't think it's going to do long term as well as they were hoping. I don't think Lightning is going to say
it's going to be terrible returns either.
No, I think it's
because everybody's like, well, you said it wasn't going to do well. That's not what we said.
No, we've been saying from the beginning, I don't even know how to gauge this one because it's been so long. I personally am not interested in it, but I know a lot of people are, and I can't deny that the first one made a lot of money. So.
They had to release it a bunch of times, re-release it, but I think it'll do well if it was well enough. That's yet to be seen. Do I think it's going to do as well as the first one? Not initially. Maybe in a few years when they re-air it 5 or 6 times.
I mean, they'll make their money back long term. They'll open a new attraction in the parks. They'll remaster it. They'll do a director's cut. They'll do whatever they got to do. And that's like the original Avatar. I mean, they had how many director's cuts and definitive final versions of it. And, now with more blue cat people sex, and...
Wait.
They did. They had a version that had, I guess the one director's cut was a little more explicit than...
Really?
Yeah. So that's all you got to do is just, get wetter and wilder with these cat people. And furries are going to line up and give you their money. They are. Never underestimate how much money furries have. They have a lot of money.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing, too. People are saying it's so much like the first movie. It's ridiculous. So it's great. It doesn't matter how pretty it is. If it's the same story all over again.
At least they didn't subvert expectations. It's the first movie, but now with water.
Well, it's like if you have an ex, right? And your ex was, like, say your ex was really, really hot, okay? But they had a lot of personality problems. This is why they're your ex. Finding another person that's really, really hot but has the same personality problems is going to probably end up in the same way.
Avatar 2, it's just like your shitty, narcissistic ex, but wetter, wilder.
More cat people, I guess.
More cat people.
And whale death, apparently.
Oh, yeah, you don't want to
I'm not watching it for that reason alone. All right, so we're going to wrap this up. But don't worry, guys. It's only because of COVID.
It's only because of COVID.
That it came in behind in one market that they're worried about as opposed to all the other markets it showed in.
All right, we're going to wrap it up.
Yes.
Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We'll talk later.
Bye.